for you. So in the truck, Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it's overcast, bloody chilly at 7 degrees. So that's the weather forecast for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. You want to know what the weather's like where you are? Look at your own bloody windy. Anyway, what brings Davy to your screens today? The Scottish Affairs Committee is sitting for the first time since devolution and since the 1998 Scotland Act 25 years ago. And it's holding an inquiry into devolution and the 1998 Scotland Act. So what have we learned so far through the sitting of this committee? Well, yesterday there was 2 sittings. And in the first sittings we had 3 lords, but the one that was of interest was Lord George Robertson. Now, what Lord George Robertson told us was that the 1998 Scotland Act was specifically designed to tie Scotland to the Union. In other words, the 1998 Scotland Act was written up in such a way that the Scottish constitutional arrangements were stolen by Westminster. Now, I've stated this stuff before. In 1953, with Cooper versus the Lord Advocate, we discovered that in the UK there's 2 different constitutional arrangements: popular sovereignty in Scotland and parliamentary sovereignty in England. The 1998 Scotland Act was there to take away the popular sovereignty of the people of Scotland and place it in the hands of the Westminster Parliament. So that's why we had the Supreme Court ruling that said not only Westminster can give you the power to ask yourself a question. The dirty bastards in the Labour Party actually wrote the Scotland Act in such a way to steal the Scottish people's sovereignty. So when you're going to the polls next and you're thinking about voting Labour, just remember the dirty thieving bastards undermined your constitutional situation and undermined your right to ask yourself a question. Now, the second session with Professor Jim Gallagher and Professor Karen Martin was even more fascinating because it addressed the breakdown in the relations, the intergovernmental relations between Scotland and Westminster. And the Sewell Convention being basically ignored as if it was never written in. But of course, as we know, a convention is only a convention as long as Westminster lets it be a convention. Only until Westminster says stop. Power devolved is power reserved. One of the other things we learned from Professor Karen Martin was that there is a stupid situation here in the UK which must be resolved. And that is that it is perfectly legitimate within the UK system for the people of Scotland to pursue independence, but there is no mechanism to make it happen. So apparently, no matter how much we vote and how we vote, it doesn't count unless England says it counts. Because let's face it, the government's getting Westminster elected by the people of England, not the people of Scotland, not the people of Wales, not the people of Northern Ireland, but by the people of England. But according to Professor Karen Martin, this is a situation that can't continue and it must give. The UK state is unique here in a situation where it breaches international law. It is, under international law, a state and not a country. There is a definition, but there is a difference between both. States are made up of autonomous parts, which have come together to create a bigger state in the interests of all the people. So we've got Germany, United States, we've got Spain. We've got a lot of examples of that. And in these states, generally, the constituent parts have the ability to say no thanks and walk away from the table. The 1998 Scotland Act was specifically designed to stop that from happening. The Labour Party specifically designed an act that entrapped the people of Scotland. Absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Now, how do we move forward with this? As Professor Karen Martin says, we keep doing what we're doing because something's going to give. The status quo can't continue. You can't have the legal right to campaign for independence and have a vote that you win for independence and have the state next door be able to tell you to fuck off, you're not getting it. So, the situation in the UK does break international law. But also, it also explains the reason why they keep describing the UK within internally as a country, when we know actually it's no 1967 that they registered the UN as a state, made up of voluntary component parts. Apparently, the 1998 Scotland Act was designed to take the voluntary part out here. That's going to be a breach of international law. But as I say, it's fascinating. Day 2 today. Dave and I will speak a wee bit more about it tomorrow, in the Thursday edition of the show. But I thought I would just come on and I'd just let you know that the Labour Party, the dishonest scoundrels that they are, wrote the Scotland Act in such a way to trap the Scottish people and take away their sovereign right to decide their own future. So next time you see a Labour activist at your door, turn them round and tell them to fuck off. Next time you meet a Labour scumbag in the street, tell them they're a scumbag in the nicest possible way. Call them a thief. Call them a liar. Call them a member of a corrupt regime. But we know that. We see Sir Kid Starver backing genocide in Gaza. You know. So that's the Scottish Select Committee, the Scottish Affairs Committee, sitting for the first time in 25 years. Day 2 today, you get it in Parliament TV. Have a look. But look at day 1, it's on my timeline. You'll see the 3 lordships, and the first of the 2 videos are posted today. And then you see the evidence given by Professor Gallagher and Professor Karen Martin. Have a wee look, folks. They're worth watching. They really are worth watching. But as I say, on the situation we find ourselves in, because of the fucking Labour Party and their corrupt 1998 Scotland Act. And then we went on to talk about the 2012 Edinburgh Agreement. And what Professor Karen Martin said was, there was no provision for what happened afterwards. Well, we know the 3 amigos come up here and broke Purder. We've not any mention of that. But and they also offered Devo Max, apparently. As we know, that turned out to be fuck all. But as I say, what they said about the Edinburgh Agreement was that in the Edinburgh Agreement it should have specified a time period before the question could be asked again. Now, what Professor Karen Martin was saying, this once in a generation thing doesn't stand up. It doesn't stand up because they didn't specify in the Edinburgh Agreement. And then we move on to the so-called Devo Max settlement, the Smith Commission, which clearly states that nothing in the Commission stops Scotland from becoming an independent state in any future time. Well, apparently, that's a fucking lie. There is something stopping us becoming independent at any future time. And that's the 1998 fucking Scotland Act drawn up with the dirty bastards in the Labour Party. And that's why prats like me, George Fuchs, and Lord George Robertson, the fucking lying bastards that promoted devolution. That's why they're in the House of fucking Lords. But there is a route, folks. Because, as Professor Karen Martin's pointed out, the situation can't stand. There has to be a mechanism. It's legal for the people of Scotland to vote for independence. There has to be a mechanism to allow that vote to be enacted. And as he says, it's an unsustainable situation, and all it will do is continue to rip the union apart. And that's exactly what happened. The result in 2014 didn't make this go away, as recognised by everybody. And the best way to settle this situation is to put a prospectus in place to allow the people of Scotland to have a further vote. And that's what the outcome will be. It will be an onslaught of political pressure, but that onslaught will only continue if the SNP win this next election. SNP don't win this next election in Scotland, the game's a fucking bogey. I mean, the game's a bogey. But this next election in Scotland, if the people do return the majority of SNP MPs, that takes the last fucking votes in the international communities to-do list. Because that really proves that the UK state's breaking international law on the right of peoples to self-determination. And that would mean that a vote at the Scottish Parliament would be enough to declare. Never mind the English fucking stooshy. So, as I say, the Labour Party are the reason why we're in the situation we're in. That and the bloody Edinburgh Agreement, where they should tell me to stick up their arses. It's a question to people of Scotland, and we don't need your permission. But we are where we are on that one. But what we are learning for this committee is a day one evidence for the three lordships. You'll find it on my Facebook timeline. Is that the devolution settlement in 1998 was set up to trap Scotland in the Union. We'll see how that fucking works out. I tend to agree with Professor Karen Martin, and that is this is unsustainable, and a mechanism will need to be put in place to give the people of Scotland their say. Okay, that's what I've got for you today, folks. As I say, well, a wee bit more. The second day evidence is happening today, so we'll watch that and get a wee bit more of it in tomorrow's programme. Have a nice day.